The Dallas Mavericks are currently under 500 on the season, but why? Is it Jason Kidd, Luka Doncic, the injuries, the offensive schemes, the schedule? Let's rank those reasons on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
We have cracked.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Rusty.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Amazing.
Your team every day.
You are Locked On the Dallas Mavericks. This is one of your co-hosts, Isaac Harris, longtime co-host of the show, covering the Mavs now for 10 seasons. Man, it's seen a lot in these last 10 years for the Dallas Mavericks. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen of the day. If you want to make something your second listen of the day, go to Locked On NBA. Got a great lineup of hosts over there covering everything that's happening in the NBA. That is Locked On NBA. This episode today is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. And also, if you've not become a Subtext subscriber, make sure you do that. This is where we text all the latest Mavericks news, all the latest stuff every single day, sometimes from inside the arena, and do Q&As and different stuff with that. So make sure you do that. It's a way to support the show. And also our newsletter. Guys, it's free to sign up for the newsletter. Free. This is email newsletter sent to you, one email a day. So you're not getting like spammed, all these different emails, but you get the show, you get Mavs articles that are brought in from different sources and all the different places. So make sure you subscribe to the newsletter today. You can do that in the podcast description, wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're on YouTube, it's in the description of the show. And here's the thing I want you to leave on YouTube. Obviously, we want you to like, we want you to share the show, subscribe to the channel and all the stuff. But in the comments below, you know, if you're a real one, you can just leave anything. Some people love doing that. But tell me the number one reason why the Dallas Mavericks have started the season the way they have. What's your number one reason? Because these are the 6 reasons that I have that I'm going to rank today. We have, in no order yet, I'm about to put them in order: the referees, Jason Kidd, the injuries, Luka Doncic, the supporting cast, and the schedule. So those 6 reasons: refs, Kidd, injuries, Luka, supporting cast, schedule. Which one of those 6 would you rank number 1 on your list for why the Mavericks have been struggling this season? Obviously, I'm riding solo today. Nick was a late scratch, had some things going on. So here we go. This is like a throwback. Or if you've been listening to One More Things, I've been dropping some One More Things that are kind of smaller, quick hitters of like one subject on some things on the YouTube channel. So make sure you guys can check those out. They're like 15, 18, 20 minutes, somewhere through there. But I did one on Kyrie Irving start to the season the other day, which has been awesome and really fun to watch. Let's talk about this current Mavs team. What a spot we're in. What a weird spot we're in, especially for some of us who are like super high on the team going into this season, including myself. I was like mad that people were not, or kind of like counting the Mavs out, or not putting them in the top tier of the West. I'm like, guys, we just went to the Western Conference Finals. Not just that, but we went to the NBA Finals. Why are we not being considered as one of the top teams in the West and all of this stuff? And yeah, it's been a little disappointing start to the season. I've been a little frustrated. And it's been because, and for me, I think it's been one of the things that's been frustrated is because it feels like this team is just like playing basketball for the first time at times. I'm like, I get that you're adding in some new pieces like a Clay and Najee and Quentin Grimes and stuff, but like the main 2 stars and then like a good chunk of the core was just in the NBA Finals like five months ago. So I'm like, why does it look like in the clutch moment, a team that looks so good, that was so good in the clutch last year, why does it look like we barely know what to do, or we're making some bad decisions, or like we don't know who we want on the floor and all this stuff? And I've been frustrated at some of those things that I thought were going to be givens going into the beginning of the season. But I also want to say this. I don't think the sky's falling either. Like, I don't think we're there. It might later on in the season, or as the, if you talk to me a month from now or a few weeks from now, you're like, hey, Isaac, and I just don't, I'm not like super down on the team right now. I'm frustrated. It's annoying to watch some of this crap, but it's also like, I don't know. There's been a few things that could go this way or that way, and we're winning some of these close games against some of these really good teams, and we're saying a whole different story. Or Luka goes supernova for a couple weeks, and he looks back to normal Luka and all the stuff, and we're like, all right, well, why were we even like worried? But I'm not worried about the team yet. I think we got a subtext question the other day. I did a Q&A. It was like, hey, where are you at? Worried. Scale 1 to 10. 10 being like super worried, obviously. And I was like, I don't know, 2. Like, I'm just not super worried yet. I just have a lot of confidence in this team for a lot of the reasons I said a while ago, that they just went to the NBA Finals. Luka, Kyrie, Lively, Gafford, PJ, Jason Kidd, and a lot of these guys. So I think they'll figure it out. I think that they will get back on the right track. It's not like we're getting blown out by 20 points every game. So I'm not worried yet. But it has been a weird start to the season. And I do want to rank these things. So when we look at the reasons why the Mavericks have started off so weird, and I'm like, all right, refs, Kidd, injuries, Luka, supporting cast, schedule. The number one reason I think that the Mavericks have started off so weird to the season, out of those 6 reasons, guys, y'all can get mad at me. I don't care. Y'all can say that I'm just like trying to like skirt some of the other stuff. I don't care. I think the number one reason is the injuries. I do think that, and it's because I think you can look at some of these things and we're like, all right, we just lost by like this last shot, or we just got stuffed, and we play the Nuggets and we're losing these close games. You just can't tell me that not having Derek Lively, which we had against Golden State, I get it, but not having Derek Lively against some of these teams isn't such a big deal. Or PJ Washington. Guys, you go back to the 3rd win of the season when the Mavericks were 2-1. They're playing in Minnesota on a second night of a back-to-back after they beat Utah the night before. They're playing against Minnesota, and we're like, man, this is technically, it should be a schedule loss. But no, they go up to Minnesota and they beat them again. We already embarrassed them in the playoffs, but we beat them again in Minnesota early in the season. The Mavericks were 3-1. It's the 3rd win of the season. We're like hyped up. We're like, let's go. This is the Mavericks team. Well, you know what the minutes played in that game were for PJ and Lively? PJ Washington started and played 32 minutes in that game. Derek Lively came off the bench and played 27 minutes in that game, played way more minutes than Daniel Gafford. Those are 2 huge parts to this team. So you just can't tell me that like that doesn't affect the Mavericks, or if we're looking at how weird they started the season, or how clunky some things on the court, or man, they've lost 6 games already. I think losing those 2 guys are huge. Like, you're losing your best big man who plays the most minutes in a game, and you're only starting like wing defensive guy in a PJ Washington. So you also look at when both of those guys went out, they've only won one game when both of those guys were out, and that was against Chicago. And that's like, they're running a gun and all the different stuff. And when those 2 guys are out, what does it naturally do? It makes you have to push up some of the other guys. So all of a sudden we're seeing Dwight Powell play a lot of minutes. All of a sudden we're seeing Omax get some minutes, and he's just not ready. You're seeing a Kessler Edwards gets the minutes, and everybody like freaking out. It's like, dude, why is he playing? Why is it? It's like, well, they're trying something out here. You're making some of these end of bench guys that honestly just shouldn't be playing right now play more minutes. And it's like, this is going to affect the team and the rotation and them winning basketball games when the guys on the end of the roster who are not going to be playing most nights are now playing a lot of minutes. So for me, we're splitting hairs for some of these reasons, because I ultimately think it's injuries versus Luka, and as far as why the Mavericks have started so weird to the season. So let's take a quick break, and yes, let's talk about Luka. Let's have the Luka conversation again, and then we'll go from there on who is 3rd on the list as for why the Mavericks have started the season this way.
You don't believe you shouldn't be here.
Podcast is brought to you by our friends at game time. Guys, watching a game at home, I get it, it's fun. Some of us have some like really cool TVs and you're like, man, I gotta set on my couch and it's all super comfortable. It doesn't relate to being there at the game. It doesn't beat being at a live event, and Game Time is here to help you get tickets. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. It's a filter, guys. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And listen, I went to an Usher concert like a month or so ago. It was incredible, by the way. But you know what? It would make it so much easier to get tickets to like some of these events. It's Game Time, because the thing about buying tickets to an event is all the fees. And Game Time has a feature to where it has the all-in pricing. You got to opt into that and make that setting happen to where you get the whole all-in pricing. You create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? Game Time.
Shut it down! Oh, let's go home!
Let's go. Music. Look at there. Seamless. Dang it. The overlay is still up. I was so close. So close to being good. Guys, I'm trying to get better at ads, man. And we just got so much stuff in the production of the show now. I was joking with Nick the other day, and I was like, dude, you remember the days when we first started doing this podcast, and it was like 2016, 2017. And I was like, we first started doing this podcast and we're like, we just cranked out an audio for it. And it was just audio, and we just posted the audio, and then it was like, all right, called it a night. Now we finished recording an episode, and then there's like all this stuff, the production of it during the show, and then all the stuff to do afterwards and who we send it to and all the stuff. It's just, it's cool. And it's a testament to you guys, because you guys have helped grow the show over the past, 8 years and all that stuff. So anyway, thanks for that. You probably don't even care about hearing about that, but here we are. Let's talk about Luka Doncic. Oh, it's never fun to have the Luka conversation when it's not going well. When the 40-footers are not going in, or the step backs, or the Luka magic isn't just firing off on all cylinders, and all the magic tricks are not happening this season. And you gotta say this: expectations brings so much tension and emotions to these types of conversations, because it's like, hey, when you are in an all-time great, he is a Hall of Famer already. He is an MVP favorite going into the season and all this stuff. It just brings out a different type of expectations and a different type of conversation around you, and a bigger light, a bigger scope on you. So yeah, this was supposed to be MVP season for Luka. This was a season we talked about on this podcast that he overtakes Jokic and becomes the best player in the NBA and all this stuff. And we're 11 games into the season, and he's just not that. And he's not on like track to be that right now. Is it, are the 28 points a game? Is that horrible? No, it's not horrible. That's incredible. That's awesome. But the expectations are different for Luka. When we're talking about an MVP candidate, when we're talking about one of the leaders of the team, we're talking about the franchise cornerstone player, there is different types of expectations. And he's just not there in these first 11 games of the season. You look at a lot of his numbers across the board are down. His shooting percentages are down, field goal percentage, 3-point percentage. You look at his decision making. I mean, this is one of the biggest things, his decision making at the end of games. Guys, they gotta make better decisions in the clutch. It isn't just, and I mentioned this in the first segment about how frustrating it is to watch a team that has this Kyrie and Luka that we've seen be so good and so efficient in the clutch, and then see this offense that it's not about just getting the ball and having these ISO possessions, because you got two of the best ISO possession players not just in the league, but in the league history. I mean, that's not like crazy to say that. So like, you're going to run ISO. That's part of it. You have these two Hall of Famers, but it's the decisions in those ISOs. It's when in the isolations, and yes, I get it. The step back 35 footers, they're so much fun. Clip the highlights, post it on TikTok. It's great. But when they don't go in, you're like, whoa, why didn't we not have something more efficient or a little bit easier? And this is where they got to touch the paint. They can't settle. They can't settle for the step back threes all the time. Or when you can ISO out and play isolation ball and still either get to the rim or at least touch the paint. You touch the paint, good things happen. And this is where decision making for Luka just hasn't been there yet. You look at some of the best shots that he got towards the end of the game against the Warriors. It's like, did he have a good shot at the end of the game? Like, did they? And it's like, get to the rim. This is where you can use your strength. So I would say not just some of the stats are down, but I think the decision making hasn't been the greatest to start the season. The text and the complaining has been there. This has always been a conversation around Luka, but it's a little amplified, you want to say, for fans whenever you might be struggling a little bit. And then there's the complaining and the text and all that stuff. And that results in the body language and the attitude. Like, this is the stuff that you want to see as a leader, that this rubs off on the team and teammates and stuff. Like, I mean, I referenced this the other day, but Bob Myers did a whole thing on ESPN, and it wasn't a huge thing, but he was just like, hey, like, body language matters for these guys. Like, when you're a leader and you're the best player in the team, you can't be doing some of these things that Luka is doing out on the floor with his teammates, or how, he reacts to getting back on defensive things. He struggled on defense to start to the season. Listen, this team revolves around Luka, and this team is built around Luka. The different players, the different pieces brought in were meant to complement Luka. Luka is the cornerstone because he's that good. But he has struggled to start to the season. And it's okay to say that. It's funny. It's funny, even like listeners of this show, but especially like online and different stuff. And it's like, for us, it's like, we'll like talk about how Luka's struggling, and then we'll get all the stuff of like from Luka stands. And then we'll talk about like Kyrie, man. Oh man, he should have, made a different decision there. It's like, oh, these guys, they don't like Kyrie. It's like, they just praise Luka. I'm like, dude, like, pick one. Like, you can't win of one of the things, or, whatever. But Luka has not been typical Luka. And that's one of the reasons. And I think it's the second reason why the Mavericks have had this like weird start to the season. All right, let me move on. Man, I knew I was going to do this because I was like, I'm going to run out of time. Number 3, I think Jason Kidd is number 3 on this list for the reasons why the Mavericks have struggled to start the season. There's just been some weird stuff that it's not that like Kidd has not ever been not weird. It's a great grammar right there, by the way. But there's some like rotation stuff that I don't get. It feels like he's like testing out stuff in the rotation that you would do in like a preseason game, but he's doing it in the regular season. I don't understand some of that. Some of the Quentin Grimes stuff, I don't understand. Like, dude, he's better than Dinwiddie. I think he should be playing. And I get it. Dinwiddie plays a little different role than Grimes. I don't understand the love for Dinwiddie minutes right now. There's too many times on the floor that I'm like, what does Dinwiddie bring right now? That I'm a little struggling with. Some of the offensive stuff. There's just some odd offensive like schemes and stuff, and stuff they're running. It's just a little, I don't know. It's just a little odd for me at times and stuff. The vibes of the team don't feel the same way as last year, but I don't think this is like the top reason. I just think that it definitely plays into it. I wasn't, and I said this on one of our 3-man weave pods, I wasn't a big fan of him calling out the team and saying what he says. I kind of like the head coach kind of just like taking him on himself. Like, hey, I should have done things better. I think that's kind of like I don't know. I could go deeper on that as far as like leadership and stuff. I think a good leader like takes the blame and falls on the sword and stuff instead of like calling out publicly and like, oh, these guys need to do this and do that. And I don't know. It's just, it feels like that has become yeah. Anyway, so I think number 1 is injuries. I think Luka's number 2. And I think Jason Kidd and some of the stuff he's pulling out as far as coaching decisions and stuff. And I think those are the top 3 reasons why Mavericks are struggling to start the season. But we also have 3 more reasons that I want to mention and talk about and go through at the same time. But let's take another quick break, and then I'll be back to talk about the schedule, the supporting cast, the refs, Man, we love talking about the refs. But real quick, let's take a quick break.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Podcast is brought to you by our friends, our longtime friends at FanDuel. Guys, FanDuel. Here's the thing. Mavericks game coming up against the Utah Jazz. They got the Spurs on Saturday night coming in Dallas. If you want to put some money down on Wemby and Luka Saturday night, here we go. This is where it is. It's at FanDuel. And here's the thing about FanDuel. Once you're watching the game, this is one of the cool things. And you have this like hunch in the middle of the game. You can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play stuff. They update odds throughout the game. So much more on the same page where you place your bets. So you can like pull up just one page, watch the game, and you can see different odds on stuff popping up. And you can place bets as the game goes along. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
Yeah. Whatever. I give up. I can't get these break. I can't get it. Nick, help me out. Maybe you can edit that in. Give me a soundboard. Guys, listen. I was going to make a joke and be like, hey, Venmo me money so I can buy a soundboard. Not going to do that. All right. Let's talk about the last three reasons. Remember, I had, for the reasons why the Mavericks are struggling to start the season, I had injuries, Luka, Jason Kidd. And here is the fourth reason. Above supporting cast and above refs, I actually put the schedule. Now, I don't think this is number one reason. I think it's a little bit like, oh, you're really trying to like pull the schedule card and stuff. It's not a lot, but we're talking about the fourth, fifth, and sixth reasons here. I think the other three have like way far more than these three. But I also don't want to like ignore it either. Like the Mavericks have lost these three games against these last three games by a really short margin. And it's frustrating. We're like, not again. You've got to be kidding me. We just lost another one of these like clutch games. And like, this sucks. They lost them to the Suns, the Warriors, and the Nuggets. So if you sit there and said, hey, you're going to play a game, it's going to be tight in the fourth quarter, and it's going to be this clutch moment, who are the players you don't want to play against in the clutch currently in the NBA right now? Who are the players you think most people would say? You know, some names I think would come really fast on that list. Steph Curry, Nikola Jokic, Kevin Durant, maybe Devin Booker, maybe. I think those three names, probably LeBron, Bronny. Yeah. I don't know. Larry Markkinen. No, I mean, it's those names. It's like you look, you just lost a clutch game to Steph in that emotional, crazy game, which, man, there's nothing more I'm loving right now than the NBA trying to force this Emirates Cup on us. I don't mind it. It's like, sure. I'm more just like, sure, like, cool. We can have some like, extra stuff in the regular season, but like, don't try to make it like bigger than what it is. And man, I loved it. And I feel like I called it like completely. I'm like, dude, the NBA is going to try to claim the like the Warriors Clay return ratings thing. Never fails. Shout out the tweet. It was like, hey, you know how many people? This amount of people watched the Warriors in the opening day of the Emirates Cup and had a picture of Steph and all this stuff. I'm like, was it more about Clay's return to Golden State or was it about the Emirates Cup? Because I'm not getting a ton of text right now saying, dude, you watching the Cup games tonight? Got to get home. Can't go to Torchy's because, the Cup's on tonight. Emirates Cup. It's like, oh, okay. Let me get home and catch those ugly courts. Anyway, what am I talking about? Oh, schedule. So anyway, you lost to some close games to some really good players. Also, the Indiana game was just a brutal like schedule loss. Indiana had been here for like 2.5 days, and Dallas just like waiting on Dallas. And it was the second night of a back-to-back. You're playing the highest pace, like craziest offense, arguably in the league in Indiana. Kind of a schedule loss, but the schedule has definitely played into why this is. I know some of you are screaming in the comments like, dude, this dude's blaming the schedule. Listen to the first 20 minutes of the episode, right? Other thing I want to bring up, supporting cast. I put him 5th on this list because if you just zoom out a little bit, I don't think, like, I'm looking at Klay Thompson, like, yes, there's been some games where you're like, man, I wish you shot a little bit better, or some different things you're doing on the court. But it's like, you really, like, I think we've had a pretty good start to the season for Klay in some moments, especially at the very beginning, and then he hits those 6 threes against Golden State. Like, I'm not sitting there pointing fingers at Klay and be like, you know what, you are the reason why it's weird. Same thing with Najee. I think Najee's played some really good basketball, so it's not like the young guys, and you can't blame Quentin Grimes if he's not playing. I think he should be playing more. It was good to see him get some minutes the other night. I thought Gafford has been efficient in his minutes, even though I think Lively should be out there and Lively should be starting. But he also, I mean, he struggles in some of the defending pick and roll. Somebody his size should be better at rebounding than what he is. But I'm also just not looking at Gafford and be like, dude, you are the reason. Dinwiddie and Hardy, I don't know what to get from them on any given night. And then, Omax, Dwight, they just shouldn't play. So, like, they're having to play. I'm just not looking at this and saying, hey, the supporting cast around Luka and Kyrie, they're the reason why. I don't think it's very high because I don't think they're just getting straight zeros from some of these people. PJ's been hurt and only played a handful of the games, kind of the same with Lively. So I don't think it's not like we're sitting here 11 games in. We're like, dude, Klay is shooting horrible from the field. He's just like, he's not hitting anything. He looks washed, or Najee doesn't know what he's doing on the floor, or, some of these other guys. I'm not looking at that right now. So some of the guys are struggling. They're like some of the bench guys, like a Dinwiddie or Hardy, and I just don't think that's big enough reason to say that's one of the main reasons. And last, and some of you guys might have this higher, but I'm just not going to do it. The refs. I think I put them on the list because I think we've had some close, some moments in some close games where they've made some bad calls that haven't went the Mavericks' way. And even in that Warriors game, like the Quentin Grimes 3, which crazy shot by Quentin Grimes, that should have been a 4-point play. Like, that was a foul on Steph Curry. Like, if that was Steph, Grimes might have got ejected. All right. Because I mean, we would have did the whole like landing zone review, all the different stuff. They would have, put him on the Jumbotron and he wouldn't even be able to like fly home, but he didn't get the foul call. So, and and also I think Luka's been playing physical at times and he's just not getting the call right now to start the season. So, yeah, I put the ref 6 on that list. So there you go. I'm sure all of you listening to this podcast completely agree with everything that I said and completely agree with the list that I put out there. And you would never tell me how dumb I am in the comments and all this stuff, because that would never, ever happen. Especially when you do any type of list or rankings. But no, let me know below how I'm wrong. For real. Leave a comment below and tell me where did I mess up in the rankings? Where do you put what in the rankings? How high you have certain things? Would love to know that. We have the Utah Jazz game tonight happening, and then the Spurs happening on Saturday. Guys, thanks for listening to Locked On Mavs. Listen to your next show tomorrow, post game after the Jazz, and make sure you subscribe to our free newsletter by going to the description of the show. Peace out. Boom. I miss you, Nick. It's weird doing a show without you. Bye.